Greetings, Tuhon and Son listeners. Thank you for listening to our 5th episode. Philip Sled Dog Jelena, Philip Tuhon Sled Dog Jelena to be precise, he's across the sea right now. He's in the Philippines and Japan, training, teaching, going on all sorts of adventures that he's going to be filling us up on next week. But in the meantime, here's an episode where we sat down and I asked him, "Hey, Dad, you've seen some martial arts movies. Who's your favorite action star?" And actually, I literally asked him that, and you can listen to it right now. Greatest martial arts action hero in movies. Go.
Bruce Lee.
Okay.
Why?
Why?
Well, because he was the only person who actually brought what he thought his A game. All the other guys weren't really sure of themselves. They were kind of hired because they were karate champions or this champion or that champion. But he arrived on the scene actually thinking that he could do it all. You know, just that whole thing. Just when he came in, when he was in that thing on Mr. Han's Island, and he was there, and he, you know, and he had that sidekick up, and Jim Kelly came in the room, and he said, "Get out." Get out. And it was just that whole thing. He kind of knew exactly what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it. And it didn't matter that it might or may not have worked in a real situation. He didn't care. And as far as he was concerned, it was working. He was a guy who had spent quite a few years. You know, he was really, you know, he used to travel around India with, what's his name, Steve McQueen, you know, when they were researching places for some movie that he was in. And, you know,
What movie was this?
I think it was Silent Flute.
And Bruce Lee's in it?
No, Bruce Lee actually wrote it.
Get out, really?
Yeah, or he was something to do with that part. You know?
I had absolutely no idea.
Well, Bruce Lee was a much more complex individual. He actually came up with the idea for that TV show, Kung Fu.
Yeah.
And he created it as a vehicle, hopefully for himself. But of course, he was way too Chinese for it.
Okay. And this is like in the 70s, right after the whole Vietnam thing. So America is very Oriental sensitive at the moment.
No, I think it's just that when they had Charlie Chan movies in the 30s, there were no Chinese people in it.
Yeah, what was it at Breakfast at Tiffany's where was an American guy doing a very insulting interpretation of a
I don't remember exactly.
Asian fellow? Well, you see it in Dragon, a Bruce Lee story, the wonderfully inaccurate Hollywood film.
Well, I mean, look at that really ridiculous movie, the one with Fred Ward in it. He played the master of Sinanju. Anyway, it was the Chinese master or the Korean master was played by Joel Grey.
Okay.
I mean, Joel Grey, a great actor, but it was just this absurd little movie. But at the same time, the American theatrical theater making group, they were so sensitive to the possibility of losing profits that they were never willing to take a chance.
Yeah. So when would you say would the martial arts explosion? Because, you know, when I was a kid, there was already 4,000 Chuck Norris related movies.
In early 70s. I think because you had the Bruce Lee explosion. He started around, I guess, 68, 69. I remember I remember watching, there was a Canadian interviewer by the name of Pierre Burton. And he used to go around the world interviewing people, interesting people, and playing these interviews on the CBC. And one day around 6 o'clock, which is when Pierre Burton seemed to play on the CBC in Canada, we had one channel or two channels in black and white TV in the 60s. We would watch Pierre Burton, and Pierre Burton came on from Hong Kong, or a recorded version of Hong Kong, and he was talking to Bruce Lee. And this interview was so well thought out by Pierre Burton. It was the first time it wasn't like, you know how sometimes when you were talking about Chris Farley before about how he would interview somebody and go, "Yeah, do you remember what it was like? Yeah, that was so cool." Well, that's kind of how martial arts people would interview martial artists. You know, you'd interview Chuck Norris and it would be, "Wow, Chuck, you're so great, eh?" Or Bruce Lee.
Did you know?
Wow.
Did you ever hear about the time you got bit by a snake? I heard a snake bite you in the arm. They did this in the Expendables too. They're like, "Hey, I heard a snake bit you in the arm," and he's like, "Yep." It was in tremendous pain for 2 days before the snake finally died. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's that's the joke, but I mean that's how martial arts writers used to be. They would fawn over them. I mean, it was what they call it was adoration. I mean, when I first started reading karate magazines, they were actually articles written by people who had an editorial point of view. Mm-hmm. But by the 70s, it was just glorified advertisements. If you bought an advertisement in the news in the thing, at least a page, you get to put in some story or two. So.
Yeah, speaking of movies, you made a little cameo in a little movie like they call Hawk's Vengeance.
Well, you can call it anything you want, but just don't call me late. Anyway, yeah, we were actually with myself and two of my students were in that.
Yeah.
Norman Grimard. What's that? Shot in Montreal was Norman Grimard and Tony Chana. And they were my two advanced Cali guys. And we worked with Cass Magda, who was the bad guy in this Gary Daniels movie called Hawk's Vengeance. And, returning returning British Marine comes to, somebody rather dies and he has to save the day.
Is this like an unofficial sequel to Snake Eater or something?
Well, it was part of the Snake Eater series, yeah.
Okay. And what the hell is Snake Eater?
I have no idea. I think a Snake Eater is just one of those guys who, I mean, it's like the people who serve in the Special Forces community start developing nicknames.
Okay.
And I think in the Vietnam War, the Navy SEALs were called the Green Faces or something like that because they would paint when they would go somewhere, if they had a subject that they were going to whack or something, they would paint their face green to sort of frighten everybody. So
and if anything funny happened on the set?
Not really. No, it was just it was very, very standard.
Alrighty, and okay, well,
we got paid.
Nice.
That was so cool.
A way to live through the experience there, Father.
And we got to eat free food. It was great.
Oh, nice. Okay, so if anyone found a piece of Hawk's Vengeance on YouTube, let's say, what do you do in it?
Well, I think I die in it. We are Cass Magda's training partners, so he would have us. But of course, he kills all his training partners. Yeah. So we would be there ready to go, and we had masks and some stuff on. They had some items that they thought we should wear, and we didn't think we should wear them. And it's funny because I've got some students who are stuntmen in the Montreal movie industry.
Yeah, like
and
Mitch.
Mitch and Kevin.
Mitch and Kevin. It's true. Kevin's been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he just was in something that was funny. I watched Pompeii, and I said, Kevin, I saw your name on the credits. He said, yeah, I played the guy fighting with a chain on the mountain. Oh, great.
We should get Kevin on the show. Ask him some questions about the sets and be like, so... You ever kick a door that's supposed to like break and it doesn't, and then you break and
Well, I remember we had a guy who was in that movie, The 300, and he was doing great. And he said he got injured pretty badly because the big problem with the movies isn't the stuntmen; it's the guys that they have, the extras, the stuntmen for a day.
Yeah,
and they want to be on. I mean, there's nothing like a guy who wants to see his face on film, and he'll do anything to be that guy at the front of the. So they could say forever after. Do you remember that movie? That really, really expensive movie? That famous movie? Remember me? I played a tribble one, that type of thing. So, there was that. And anyway, one of our guys was, there was a break in the wall, and he was there standing, and all these guys were charging through and ran over him and hurt his leg.
Yeah, camera. Action.
Whatever, yeah.
So, we settled it. Your favorite star, Bruce Lee.
Well, no, he was I wouldn't say my favorite star.
Well, who's your favorite then?
Well, I really thought that Tom McLaughlin movie, Billy Jack, was really cool.
Oh, and that's hilarious because I think that movie fucking blows.
Well, yeah, no, it doesn't. It's not that it doesn't blow. You have to understand, what it is about it that was so cool. It was just sort of like that. I'm going to touch my boot on this side of your face, and there's nothing you can do about it. But you have to understand, around that time, there were so many of these really, really trashy movies. There was a movie theater on St. Lawrence Street.
There's so many random rape scenes in that movie. I'm just kind of like...
What's worse, though, that movie was one of a trio of movies. Yeah. So the first movie was just him coming to town and killing a lot of dumb cowboy types, including the rancher's son. And then the second movie was the payback, and the third movie was how this small little school in the middle of nowhere would spot. I mean, it was ridiculous. So they would have a hard time, finding their lunch money. But these kids, they got together and. And yeah, we put together, this group of. They would have the international conventions at this school in the middle of nowhere, and they would, come up with great ways of causing world peace. So it was one of those so self-indulgent movies. It was you were embarrassed to have watched the first one.
It's wicked crappy.
It's wicked crappy. That's exactly it. Yeah. I can't imagine how such a piece of trash had been there.
Yeah.
But the thing about the Bruce Lee movies was that because he wrote the script, because he wasn't a director, but he wasn't like just some kind of like extension of the director. A lot of these guys knew him, and if they didn't know him, they knew of him because Bruce Lee had become a very strong part. He became the instructor of an awful lot of these people before he became an actor. He was a guy teaching these guys how to. He had Steve McQueen as a student. He had James Coburn. Lalo Schifrin. All these guys were really, really big movers and shakers in the movie industry, and those movies really had a lot to do with it. There's a movie with James Caan.
Jimmy Caan's a scary guy.
But there's movies with what was his name? He was in the Great Escape too. All those revenge movies. What were they called?
I don't know, but I'm going to edit all this out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't feel bad about it. Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, so you dug Billy Jack.
Yeah, well, Billy Jack was good.
What else did you dig? Top 5, let's say. Because it's kind of your job to see a lot. So.
Top 5. Then I can bring in... I really like the Kill Bill movies because... they were so over the top that they were great at that. There was a martial arts movie that wasn't a martial arts movie was A Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, because that was kind of like the Sergio Leone version of a samurai movie. There was a one called Red Sun. Was it Red Sun? I don't remember. It was Toshiro Mifune played in a cowboy movie, and it was kind of weird because it was, but it was not bad. It kind of tried showing the kind of people the samurai could be in a situation. The samurai was trying to get his sword back at the end, and it was like, yeah, okay, it wasn't a bad movie. Mm-hmm. But there's it's really difficult because I wouldn't ever watch one of those now.
Yeah.
And so it's very hard to imagine what it was I was watching then. It's kind of like, imagining what kind of music you listen to at 12 years old. You can't imagine ever listening to it again. So how can
Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah, well, okay.
Well, I still kind of listen to Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah, but I wasn't a Weird Al Yankovic type of guy. I remember calling up somebody in my grade 7 class because I'd found an album by Elvis Presley, and I thought that I didn't think it made me cool, but I thought I had the leanings towards possibly being thought of as not quite so weird.
Well, all right. Okay, now that we said all that, who do you think sucks?
Besides, Steven Seagal in his first movie didn't suck, but
I hear he's like really hurt stunt people. That's what I keep reading everywhere.
Well, I think that's what he wants people to believe, and I'm sure he has really hurt them. And because that's the problem with somebody who has your life in their hands is that it doesn't take them to be much more than stupid to do it. And he originally he's a big guy, and now he's a big guy who's put on a lot more weight, who carries a lot of extra body weight, and sometimes you think that you can control things. He was a tall, strapping man in Japan when he was running a school there. But he came back and, started believing all of this nonsense that he probably had written about himself. And, it's like he became quite the guy. And but what's funny, because even though he may have hurt a lot of people, he used to issue ridiculous challenges. He, of course, would think that he was as good as a lot of these stuntmen, but a lot of these stuntmen were just former martial arts people, champions themselves, and this was a way they could make a really decent living. And there's a guy by the name of Gene LaBelle who doesn't deny it, but doesn't say it happened. But a lot of people who say they were there say that Steven Seagal had said that he could take anybody and nobody could knock him out, and all these kind of ridiculous braggadocio type of things. And so supposedly Jean LaBelle, put him out, but because he didn't want to be forever blacklisted in the movies, he kind of denied it ever happened. So it can only be imagined. But there are enough people that I know who are, either in or peripheral to that organization or that function in Los Angeles that have told me that to be true. I can't imagine that they would take a chance of getting blacklisted by telling me a lie because I'm a nobody.
When you look at a movie and you see people fighting on screen, it's the same way when I look on screen and I can really tell when someone is not actually playing guitar, and it really can take me out of the scene.
Yeah. I guess the thing that's funny is when you see people who are good at one thing and they try to do the transference thing. I saw that recently. Yeah, there was a TV show called NCIS Los Angeles. And there was an episode recently called Tuhon. And I didn't realize that this was supposed to be a bunch of Filipino martial artists who killed each other with swords and stuff. But it because there was absolutely nothing, neither in the quality nor in the insinuation of this movie, that gave me that feeling. And it was kind of amusing because I would see these guys, doing stuff, and they did it in such a lame manner. There was no fluidity. There was no continuity. There was none of the things that you expect. Not that I was going to expect to see somebody who was really, really, really good, but not just so lame. And so that was very funny to see. But it's just when you see people trying to perpetuate a fraud, because that's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody says that, for example, if in the old days when they would have a fast draw guy, it wouldn't be Gregory Peck drawing the gun. It would be Gregory Peck's face, and they would cut to a shot below the shoulder of the character Gregory Peck was playing, and a guy who was actually a really fast draw. Mm-hmm. And he would draw the gun, and everybody would go, "Wow, that Gregory Peck is faster," or whoever the star was.
Yeah.
But now, of course, all of these actors want to play their own stunts, and I would say, why don't they try doing parkour?
Yeah.
Boom, boom, fall.
Well, then there's this newer I wouldn't say a newer generation, but a generation after Bruce Lee. I mean, we had guys like Jackie Chan, Jet Li, Tony Jaa, who all really are good at focusing on, there's fighting and then there's Hollywood fighting.
Yeah.
Like, you have to raise your arms 3 times as long so it looks cooler on camera, even if it's unnecessary in reality.
Well, yeah, exactly. And for example, there's of course the stories we hear about Bruce Lee when he was filming that it was so fast that they had to slow it down so you could see it, which made people think that it had been sped up. Mm-hmm. So it was just one of those ridiculous things. And was he that fast? I don't know. I've never met him. One of my teachers, Dan Inosanto, says, yes, absolutely, he was that fast. Do I trust him? Yes, but I wasn't there. So, you have to evaluate things on your own.
Well, already.
Well, no, it's just that you can easily go, yes, he was the fastest, bestest guy. But then you start repeating, other people's stuff. It's because you start getting to the point where you will listen to them and what they say and how they say it and go, yes, they were right. Or yes, that's the way it is. And it's not based on truth. It's just based on wanting to repeat what I heard.
Yeah.
And so, but Bruce Lee was, a driven individual. I heard there was a book written by one of Bruce Lee's wife married a couple of times after he died.
Okay. And
I think the first time she married, this guy went through all of his papers in the garage and published something, basically like an expose about Bruce Lee, that Bruce Lee had taken steroids. And then, when you mention something like that, so many people go, wow, you mean he cheated? And it's like, well, no, he didn't cheat. Well, what do you mean? You said he took steroids. I said, yes, but cheating requires that you do something to unfairly have an advantage in a contest. And he wasn't having a contest with anybody except perhaps himself. So, it's like saying, I've had students who have taken steroids because they've had bad lungs. And so you need a steroid pump to make your lungs work better.
Well,
Your grandfather had to take steroids because he had emphysema. You know, I mean, it got him so much better that he was actually doing physical stuff that he couldn't do before.
Yeah, but steroids are primary medicative.
Yes, well, exactly. But we have a tendency to believing because we hear the word steroid that it means something else. Supposedly, Bruce Lee had some physical reason why he needed to take steroids, and his physique was not available to him at the with.
It's a pretty piece of crap thing for her second husband to do to her previous husband, though.
Well, I suppose when you become cast out, when you get kicked out, or I don't know whether or not, but maybe that's why he was there. I mean, you get to be pretty vulnerable. Once you, not so much that Bruce Lee's been your protector, but I guess there's a belief that it takes you a long time to get over the fact that they've passed on, and then you want to believe that people have your best interest in their heart, and if they don't, if they're just there for some ulterior motive, sometimes you don't find that out until too late.
We keep saying these depressing things, and I'm like, well, we got to talk about something positive before leaving this, because it's incredibly sad. Yeah. Well,
actually, getting back to the martial arts, to the better martial arts.
Talk a little closer to the microphone.
The best thing, there are a lot of good martial artists out there, and I mean, we were mentioning Mark Dacascos before. He's actually pretty good. He plays Wo Fat on that Hawaii Five-0 show.
Yeah, he was also on Iron Chef, and
yeah, but he wasn't doing, it wasn't playing Wo Fat on Iron Chef. So
no, but he has done Iron Chef for those.
As a matter of fact, and I was watching he hosted an episode, I think on the History Channel. With Miyamoto Musashi, the sword god in Japan. He was a guy who was from the 15th century, who had 60 or 61 battles from the time he was 14 and never lost, but he did all sorts of things to make sure that, he never took a bath because he never wanted to be in a position where he was at a disadvantage.
Okay.
So I guess he smelled, which made probably people think that they'd know he was coming from a mile away.
Yeah, they were less hesitant to get close.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it was Mark Dacascos was also in what we talked about in the other episode, Only the Strong, and he was also in the Crow TV series, which I think had like a $5 budget. So any beef all you fanboys have with the Crow TV series, just know that Mark Dacascos rocked as Eric Draven, but the production of the show sucked. But he didn't suck. The show did. And I don't care how sweet that cherry is. If it's surrounded by shit, it's not going to taste nearly as good as it would if it was in a pile of ice cream.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mark Dacascos, I know his father, so it's he has really good genes as far as martial arts is concerned. His father's been doing martial arts since the 50s. Is considered to be, was one of the top fighters in the U.S., top competitors, top form people, has created a ton of really good people. A good friend of mine was a student of his Leonard was a student of his for a long time. And, these guys, when you realize sometimes it's not just the fact that your father was a martial artist, but if you are interested in becoming involved, then everybody that your father knows welcomes you. Because if you're respected in a field and your son wants to enter that field, well then not only do the teachers embrace you, but they probably open more doors because your father was somebody they respected. So that worked out to his advantage as well. And when he lived in Europe, he also didn't have the distractions about being the son of an icon when he was growing up, because yes, people knew him and people would go to Germany and know him, but it's not the same as if you're some guy, pick a town, Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, Chicago, whatever, and you're growing up the son of somebody well known. Invariably, it's going to be very difficult for you to be anybody but somebody who goes, so what's it like being the son of Al Dacascos? And of course, the question would be, the people aren't looking for a nice answer. Everybody, the TMZ type of thing, everybody's looking for an exclusive bit of dirt. So,
Hey, here's some more dirt. Who else sucks? I'll tell you who I think sucks. Actually, I don't think he sucks. I just heard he's a total jerk. I heard Jean-Claude Van Damme was a prissy little jerk, but this is based on his reputation in the '80s, and we're in the 2010s.
Yeah.
So I think he's had a long life and a lot of time to think about these '80s, '90s diva-ish actions.
Yeah. But at the same time, though, I mean, Hollywood consumes people. You know, it brings people in. It creates a star system that's not based on anything real. And then when you start becoming slightly distasteful in their mouth, they spit you out. So, as much as we may, find people like that repulsive and repugnant. I mean, not that I do, but that people generally will find them repugnant. It's not really their fault because they're the victims of a publicity machine. I mean, look at World Wrestling Federation and stuff, or what they call it, World Wrestling Entertainment now. They create these absurd scenarios, expect the people to fulfill them. Set up all these things. He's sleeping with his manager, and there's always that guy that owns everything. Is kind of like a Simon Legree type guy. I'm ready to change everything, and then you realize, and then some days one of these yahoos actually plays it out, and everybody goes, "What's wrong with him? Didn't he realize it was just a story?"
Yeah.
Well, I guess not. They expect they get those yokels into the seats every week because they believe those stories.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know the thing about spitting them out, like falling from grace. Let's say if you are a child star and all you know is the attention, to be suddenly, I can only think about the Simpson episode where Bart was feeling all this anxiety because Lisa came and she was the new cute baby and no one paid attention to him anymore. I'm like, oh God, that's like that times 5 billion, Oh man, child stars, Hollywood, it's bad for you. So if you could train with any action movie star of any movie you've ever seen, or if you could have been a part of a Hollywood movie playing guy who falls down number 7, or even the star of a movie, what action movie star would you have wanted to been with? I should say that without stuttering so much. Okay. Hey, Dad. So, all right. All the action movie stars you've ever seen, which one would you work with had you had the opportunity?
Well, just because he's had such an impact on the people I know, I would have to say someone like Bruce Lee, because I've also heard not nice things about him.
Well, no, it's perfect.
But what are you going to say about somebody? Hi, I remember Bruce Lee when he did a really, really nice thing and he picked up a puppy. And I remember when he stopped his car and let a lady cross the street. I mean, people aren't going to write that stuff. They're going to write, oh, well, I heard he did this, or I heard he did that. I mean, people like Lindsay Lohan, it's almost like, she does stupid things so that, they'll write about her in the papers.
Yeah.
So, it's not, I don't feel bad for Lindsay Lohan, but at the same time, I'm not surprised that it happens. And when it comes to, people like Bruce Lee, of course they're going to write crap about him because that's what people do.
All right. Besides Bruce Lee, though, who else would you want to work with?
Action stars.
Or Muppets. I don't know.
Or Muppets. Yeah. Miss Piggy.
I'm going to use my kung fu on you.
Well, I think, as a watershed thing, weird stuff like that guy, the guy who played Mr. Miyagi in the Karate Kid series.
Yeah.
But there are other ones. Our earlier 70s stuff, the Clint Eastwoody things when he did Magnum,
Dirty Harry.
Dirty Harry. A lot of interesting stories that sort of came out partially and then kind of died on the vine. I think that movie I was talking about, which I'm trying to remember the name of, Remo. Remo. It was called Remo.
Okay.
And it was based on a series of books that I've been reading since the early 70s called, what was it called? I'm not thinking about Remo. It was not called Remo. It was called...
You were so sure 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, it was called... Well, no, Remo was the name of the movie.
Okay.
They called The Destroyer. That was the name of the book, the series. And it was about this guy who had been a warrior in Vietnam, and this old guy, Master Truin, found him and for some secret government agency taught him how to kill people with, making maximum use of the body. It was based on this whole idea that as human beings, we only use 2% of our 8% of our potential, and he would make you close to 100% of your potential. And they would do all sorts of stuff. And it was so, I don't know, it was just so off the wall that it was interesting. And, there were times when, they had this comic relief. I mean, whoever wrote the book series had a very funny sense of humor. Richard Safir and Warren Murphy. My God, I even remember that. That's kind of scary that I would remember it. But he would always be watching, American soap operas, and it was, he called them the great stories. Anyway, but it was a very long series. It was about 65 or 70 books. And
wow. All written by the same person?
Supposedly. I think.
What is he, R.L. Stein? Writing Goosebump books in 2 minutes?
They were only like 185 pages, small books. They're not, and it was just funny. It was, the basic idea was an idea presented itself, and these two guys would go and kill the person, and they would do it in a rather spectacular fashion. He could kill things with his bare hands, or he could do all sorts of stuff to kill people. So that's
with
what
his
he would
bare hands,
or with a toothpick, or with anything. So.
Yeah.
But then they made this movie Remo with Fred Ward, and I'll tell you, they made it so stupid that nobody could make that movie again.
Oh, all right. Always leaving on a positive note. Thank you for listening to Tuhon and Son. I'm not sure what episode this is because Dad and I record one, and then he went off and watched some soon-to-be canceled TV series from what looks like it. And then we came back and did this one. So thanks for listening and watching Tuhon and Son, because we're not on iTunes yet.
All right. I will be seeing you guys soon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, all right. Bad time.
Yeah, bedtime is right.
Yeah, all right. Thanks for listening to Tuhon and Son. I'm Ryan Jelena.
And I'm Philip Jelena.
And I came from his loins. All right. See ya. Bye.
And I came from Hudson.
So that was another illustrious ass-kicking episode of Tuhon and Son. Thank you very much for listening. And if you want to know more about Gamma, Philip Jelena's gym, please go to MontrealMartialArts.com. And, look up Gamma. That's Gamma, the Jelena's Academy of Mixed Martial Arts. And if you want to have, I don't know, if you have any questions or topics you want us to talk about on the show, please write to us at sonofsleddog@gmail.com. And, thank you for listening, everyone. And stay jump kicking. Yeah, right. Have a good one. Spring's here.